to understand the logistics for 61B, it's important to understand something about my philosophy about how learning happens. So learning, of course, happens by doing. And an instructive example for me was this game, Dance Dance Revolution. Okay, so when I first played this game, I was roughly like these two folks you see on your left. I had no idea what I was doing. I lost my first round. And what does this have to do with computer science? Well, I did not actually realize until I played this game that practice really makes you get good at something. I just always had the sense that innate talent was the main driving force for people's success in any area. And this is something that I was clearly terrible at. But later, actually, I played this game a lot. I got roughly to the level of this person you see on the right. I could still play decently well. I'm not as good as the people that play at the student union where they have a DDR machine, but I mean, I got pretty good. And this really was an eye-opening thing to me because I'd heard this my whole life that you learn by actually doing things. But that's where I really learned that's how one gains the ability to do things, by actually doing them. So what does that have to do with our class? Well, lectures, as much as I put a lot of time into trying to make them as good as possible, to me, I think of them only as the foundation. And it's just an introduction to any given topic. It's all the other stuff, all the hours that you spend, the other 11 or so hours you spend a week on the class, where you're going to be building all of the skills that will push you forward, right? So that's going to be all the programming you do, whether that's in labs, homeworks, projects, or discussion sections, or if it's solving the interesting problems, math problems basically, on the study guides for lecture, the homeworks that we provide, looking at old exam problems, discussion section, all those things are where the action really happens. Okay? So I mention all that because I want you to know that if you're somebody who has this sense that talent is the underlying driver and that decides your success, I don't think so. I think that you can get very, very good at this. I do think that there is a variety of how fast people learn, and I have no idea why. But I feel like if you're at Berkeley, you can get through this class. Maybe you're not ready this semester. Maybe you have other life commitments that, like a full-time job or something, where it's not going to happen. But just putting that out there, that if you're somebody eager-eyed now and you crash and burn at some point, I really think you can do this. Okay. So to that end, we define success for some reason in college by grades, and I assign grades based on points. And so I want to point out that there's basically 4 types of points in this class. I'll be very transparent about where grades come from. So the first type of points is low effort and everyone should get them. These are the weekly surveys, the course evaluations, and the usual score is 100%, the median. That is, the average. If I pick a person out of the hat in the class, they'll get 100% on this set of assignments. And I want to note that these surveys are weekly. We're going to have one every week. They're usually short. We used it to track how the class is going. This kind of instrumentation is really vital to making a class function well, especially at our size. Next is a set of points which I call high effort, yet everyone gets them. These are like the projects, right? The projects will take you a lot of time, and they're going to consume most of your effort in this course. And yet, they are not a grade differentiator for the most part. I mean, they are, but I really expect that if you are doing what I consider like the baseline of excellence in the class, you should get 100% on the homeworks, projects, and labs. They're designed so that everyone can get there, and the median again on these is 100%. Like if I pick a random student in the class, they get 100%. So even though the projects are a lot of work, the expectation is that you get them. And so between this, if you're at that median level, like you're really shooting for like say a B+, something like that. Then there are the exams, which is really where the variance occurs that separates, say, someone with a B- to an A+. And on those, the median score is 60%. These are high effort points, and not everyone gets them. And later, we can talk about the philosophy behind this. I'm not going to do it today. I'm just letting you know how it is. But happy to, like a few times during the semester, I'll take open questions. But this is the thing I've settled on. And so these exams, like ideally, I want to shoot for that 60% median, so that the students who really have truly mastered the class are up there in the 90%, and maybe 1 or 2 people get a full score. That's kind of my ideal situation, that one person gets a full score. That means like I've differentiated as much as I can. Yeah, that's my philosophy. So be aware the exams will feel really hard, but hopefully not too demoralizing. And one thing I do that is a little more friendly than that is that I know that exams are noisy. So when you take an exam, it's if you know random variables, like there's a distribution of scores you might get that just by pure happenstance, because of the random thought that flits through your head, or the fact that you overslept or underslept the night before, that there is some noise in grading. And as a result, I try to mitigate that noise a bit, because we only have 3 three instruments or 3 exams that capture your knowledge. And so to mitigate the noise in those first 2 midterms, the final can replace your first 2 midterms, even both. So if you have a bad day on those midterms, you're sick or whatever, hopefully the final can help you bounce back. And if for some reason you have a crisis near the final, reach out at that time, because I understand that since the variance is all here, we try to be flexible where we can. These are the dates for the midterms and the final, and alternates will be possible if truly necessary. I'm not saying the exact details of how what we call the clobber policy works. That's the policy by which the final can replace the midterms in the syllabus. Not worth explaining here. And then I have a 4th type of point called a pacing point. This is a way to get credit for going to discussion lab and keeping up with lecture. So if you're going to things or you're watching the lectures on time, you'll get some pacing points. It's a small amount of extra credit, but crucially, it doesn't get your score above 30,000 points. So if you have 29,772 points and you get 800 pacing points, you'll only get 30,000 points because we're capping this at 30,000. And the idea here is these points are really intended more towards folks who are, I would say, like dipping their toes in the class, or they're a little underprepared, to give them a chance to do relatively well because they're not going to get as many of these points up top. So the full details around all this stuff, they are on the website. I'm not going to go into all the exact details about bins. And actually right now the bins aren't set yet, but I'll do it soon. Okay. Lateness policies. All right, this is one of the trickiest things about teaching a big class. I want everyone to take the deadline seriously, but I also want to provide flexibility when truly necessary. This is my current iteration. It's also flawed, like all other such plans, but the basic idea is that when we have a deadline in this class, our expectation is you do the assignment by that day. The deadlines, especially in weeks 1 to 5, are hyper calibrated. Everything is very carefully balanced against each other, so I really want you to try and stay on the pace. Because if you wait to do something, right, you're just delaying something you have to do anyway. So if you stay on the pace, if you can, really a good idea. So because of that, there's no partial credit in this class for work submitted late because of the deadlines. We want them to be taken seriously. So GradeScope, our platform for grading, will give you 0 points by default for late work. Okay. Now there is an ability to have some flexibility. Bad rhyme. So if you go to our website, Beacon, which is the learning management system that we custom built for this class to handle our quirky policies that B courses can't do, it'll allow you to request extensions. These extensions can even be retroactive, though we do recommend requesting them in advance because there may be a delay. So the first is there's 2 types of extensions. One is a short extension of less than 24 hours. These have immediate approval by an automated system, so you know now. If you need a longer extension, up to 3 days, you'll present your reason. There's a form you have to fill out. Actually, for both of them, there's a form you have to fill out. And a GSI will review it within 1 business day, and you'll get back your answer. And if you have some kind of emergency and you need more than 72 hours, there is a policy, but see the syllabus. It's not something I expect almost any of you to use, but be aware that it exists. Okay. So this extension system hopefully will help when you really need it, but treat the deadline seriously. After we get past week 5, we'll relax the deadlines just a tiny bit in ways that I'll explain then. But really, these first 5 weeks, I want you full bore. Like this class kicks off with a bang. I need you to stay on task. Okay. So the class is basically, is divided into 3 phases. The first phase is what we're starting in about 5 minutes, which is the Intro to Java and data structures. In this part, all of the coding work is solo. We want you to really learn all the basics yourself and have a very solid foundation. And this part of the class moves extremely fast. So homework, it's not because I'm trying to like scare people away. It's just that I feel like you're there. I want you to know what's possible. I want to know what you're capable of. And also you're so high energy right now because you just came off that break. It's great. So there's a homework 0. Actually, I should even call it homework 0A, which is an intro to Java, and that's due Friday in 2 days. And I really want you to do it even before the lecture. So when you finish with this, sit down and start writing some code because you're ready. There'll be phase 2, which is a data structures part of the class. And that part is still going to be solo, except the second half of the final project of that phase is going to have a partner, more later. And that part will move, I'll call moderately fast. And then the final few weeks of the class is algorithms. At this point in the semester, we're tired. Other classes tend to backload, I feel like, maybe not everybody. So I try to ease the pace off so people get a little more of a break. And in that part, all of the programming is all just the final project, and it's done in pairs. Okay, so that's what we got as far as logistics. And so next, I'll start kicking off phase 1 in the next and final recorded video of today. And then after that, I'll be kicking it back to me from a few years ago to continue the lecture.